What's up, everybody? This is Matt Brown with another IoT hacking video where we will be showing off a 0-day, a never-before discovered vulnerability in this Chinese IP camera that allows us to remotely view the video feed and physically turn and point the camera in the direction that we want to, all without authentication. If you're new to this channel, my name is Matt Brown, and I love hacking on devices like this. That's what I do in my day job as an IoT security professional, and I also like to share my knowledge with you on YouTube, so if that sounds fun, smash that subscribe button and join our Discord. The link is in the description. Without further ado, we're going to take a quick look at the device. Over on the bench, I've actually done a number of videos on this device where we opened it up, we ripped it apart, and we pulled the flash chip out, and so we have all the software off of this device. That was fun. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be attacking this over the network. So we're not going to do much on the workbench. What we're going to talk about is something way more interesting: standards bodies. Yeah, that sounds really boring, but trust me, there's a lot of meat on the bone once we get to the end of this. So what I have before me here is the Wikipedia page for ONVIF. ONVIF is the leading open standard for IP cameras. They define a common set of APIs, of interfaces that will allow a bunch of different software and hardware made by different manufacturers to work together in theory. And it usually does work pretty well together as long as those devices are compliant to these ONVIF standards. And I have one of these standards documents here, which we are definitely not going to read through all of this. It is quite a large document. This is 122 pages, and this is just the introduction to the specification, and then you have to go look at other documents to really dig into the meat. But we want to look at one thing inside of this document, and that is the access control. So if we scroll up here, actually, in the security section, where it kind of defines the overarching security protocol for all ONVIF API interactions, it says quite definitively that services defined in the standard shall be protected using digest authentication. So we're not going to go into the weeds in digest authentication today. I've actually done that in other videos, so you should check those out. But it requires authentication for a bunch of these service interactions. And if we search through this document, which is not the easiest thing to do, we can see that the only API interactions in the ONVIF spec that don't require authentication are ones that are specifically called out as pre-auth, right? So there are classifications of services that you can interact with, and it gives an example here of get endpoint reference. Get host name is a common one that you'll see that is allowed to be obtained without providing the username and password for the device. But most other API calls, when you're interacting with a security camera, you would expect that it requires authentication. But how do you know? How do you know that this random camera you bought off of some seller in China actually follows this spec to the T, that every API endpoint, there's actually 490 some odd service endpoints, service calls that you can make to these devices. And how would you know? Well, I have written a tool called onvifscan, and we are going to use that tool against this camera. I've been developing this as I've been testing multiple cameras out there that implement the ONVIF standard. And what I've noticed is a large variance in what APIs, what services are allowed to be accessed without authentication. And today we're going to see the absolute worst case. Spoiler alert. So you can read this on your own. I'm going to put a link to this tool in the description, but we're going to kick the tires. But there are two actually tools that are provided within this repository. The first one is WS Discovery, and we're not going to get too deep into this, but the ONVIF spec defines a way that on a network you can ask a device to say, hey, what ONVIF services do you support? And then it will come back and hand you a URL to say, hey, here's where you actually go to interact with the HTTP-based ONVIF API. And then I've got the second tool called onvifscan that we're going to pass that URL to. And it is going to try to attempt all kinds of ONVIF calls without authentication, and it will report back if there are any of them that should require authentication that don't. And so, and then there's also a secondary part of this tool that we're not going to do today, but there is a credential brute forcing kind of mechanism that I've also built into this tool. And by default, it will check a kind of a common list of usernames and passwords. And of course, you could provide your own lists. But let's go ahead and let's try this out. So right now, I'm going to make sure that my camera is online. In my lab environment, I believe this is the IP address, and it does respond to a ping, so that's cool. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run that WS discovery. Now, this can actually be run in two different ways. You can run it on against the broadcast address, and then any devices that are on that subnet would, if they're ONVIF compliant, would respond. But in this case, we're just going to give a unicast packet right where we know this device is, and so it is going to go out and it's going to discover this device, and of course it's going to say that it doesn't work. That's just awesome. All right. All right, you know what, let's run nmap first because that's a good idea. We're gonna run a port scan, and we do see telnet open, which is awesome. And then we see our other services. All right, we're just gonna try it again. Maybe it didn't like us the first time. All right. Hey, you know, sometimes you just got to run the tool twice. All right, so here we go. We ran that WS discovery tool against our target camera, and it came back with all this very useful information. And keep in mind that all of this information, according to the ONVIF specification, can be provided without authentication. So we haven't hit a vuln yet. But it tells us some useful information for recon purposes anyway. It tells us the device type is a network video transmitter. In other words, it's a camera, right? Because like I said, the ONVIF spec supports a whole wide range of, you know, network video recorders, access control systems, all sorts of different things. And then the real thing that we care about is right here, and it's this service endpoint. And so this ONVIF device service, we can see that it's providing us the port, right? Because it can run on all sorts of different ports, right? Some will run on port 80, some on 8080, some on some oddball port that's out there, and this is how we can know exactly what port it's running on. And then, of course, we have actually the URL path. And so now what we can do is these two tools work together really well, because we're just going to take this service endpoint and we're just going to pass it to the onvifscan tool. And if I just type in, actually, let's clear this out, and I'm going to go to bin onvifscan in our repo, and it's going to tell us that it requires kind of a sub command. We can either pick auth or brute. Brute is that brute force part of the tool. So we are going to use auth, and then we're just going to pass it our URL, and it's going to go and it's going to attempt a bunch of calls really rapidly. And we can see from the red stuff here that there's a bunch of stuff that is going on that should not be happening. And so you can actually scroll up to the top where it gives us a summary of all the security issues found. 28 security issues, in fact. All of these services on the device get device information, get host name, which that one's like borderline whether that's sensitive, get network interfaces, get screenshot or get snapshot URI, get stream URI, which we will be looking at in just a second. We got the get users call. There's all sorts of stuff on here, and we'd actually get more if you are using this tool. Just know I'm not going to run it now, but you can throw the -A flag to do all commands. There are some that are dangerous that in some cases could brick the device, and so I kind of gate those behind that -A flag. But yeah, we can see here there are some 400s, but mostly this is because we can see here it says not implemented, right? So the ONVIF standard defines some of these services that are required for a certain device type. So for a camera, there are some things that to be ONVIF compliant and to be a camera, you have to support some of these services up here. And then there are other ones where they're optional. So we are going to specifically hone in on this. Where is it? I just said it. So the get stream URI. And so what we're actually going to do is we're going to actually run the tool again, except we're going to throw the -v flag on for verbose. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us the actual XML response that the camera is sending back to us each time. So you're going to get to see what that looks like. And I'll just run it one time. And you see that it's like a ton of text, right? It's a ton of stuff there. These are all the responses from all those API calls. So what we're going to do is we're actually pipe this into less. And then I'm going to search for our call here to get stream URI. And then if we look down in this massive XML document, we can see right here that we have an RTSP URL. So if you're not familiar with RTSP, that is the video streaming protocol. So this is that endpoint. And what do you think the odds are if all this ONVIF stuff doesn't require authentication, that RTSP is going to require authentication? Technically, they're different services. So it could be the case that all the ONVIF stuff is terribly implemented, but RTSP does require authentication. But we probably guess, based on some foreshadowing, that that is not going to be the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, and you know what? Let's just pop a window down here, and we are going to run ffplay, which is just going to connect over TCP to this URL. And again, there's no username and password here that I'm providing, and I'm just going to press enter, and we get a video feed. So you can see here that it lags a little bit, but there we go. We have access to the video feed remotely over the network, no authentication. And we can enumerate that URL endpoint using ONVIF, which also doesn't require authentication. But this gets even better. All right, so I'm actually gonna like, oh, you know what? Let's put this over here. Because for the second part of our demonstration, we are going to actually move the camera. So this camera is a pan tilt zoom camera. Obviously, not all cameras have the motors in them to be able to turn the camera up, down, left, and right. But this camera does. It does have those controls on board. And so what I've done is I've created a couple of scripts here. And so I'm going to start with this proof of concept, because this is some Python code, and I'm just going to go ahead and full screen this for a second, where we're going to send one of those XML messages and to be able to control where the camera is pointing. So again, you see here this URL, it's got that ONVIF device service, that same URL going on here. And then the different services are actually contained within the XML like message body. It's not like all these endpoints are a different URL endpoint here. It's all right in here where you're interacting with the different services. So this service we're interacting with is called continuous move. So we're gonna move the camera, right? So what we're gonna do is this should, you know what, let's have Y go, let's have it go up. So in theory, this should make Y, it should make the camera go up. So we're gonna save this, and then we're gonna run ptg simple, and then we're going to bring this down here. So if this works correctly, yep, it just moved over there and it lags a little bit. Our camera moves. That never gets old. So I actually have another example here, and we are going to fix i3 here for a second. So I have this other demo here for the pan tilt zoom controls, where it's going to capture my keyboard input, and with WASD I should be able to move this, and sometimes it bugs out. So all right, now I'm going to try to move it down. Yep. Okay, then move down a little bit. It always like lags by like 5 seconds or so. The light. All right, let's go down a little bit more. There we go. All right, we went down. And obviously I gotta wait. It happens over there, then it happens over there. Actually, I'm okay, now I'm gonna move it like to the left, and then I'm gonna show the bench. All right. Well, it's not wanting to move left for some reason. All right, we're gonna move back up, and then I'm gonna switch. You can see it. You can see it move it up there. All right, I'm gonna move it down. Here we go. Come on. I think like my Python script is like screwed up. Oh, session ended. Here, let me show you what I'm seeing here. Okay, the session ended. All right, we'll try to do it again. All right, wait, should we try left? Oh, the session keeps ending. All right, now I'm gonna go left. Plus, okay, left. Here we go. Man, it really just doesn't want to go left. All right. Well, there you go. There you have it. It's not perfect, but we obviously have the pan tilt zoom controls working without authentication, and we can remotely view the video feed without authentication. There seems to be no authentication present on this device that I can find out from anything ONVIF video related. Telnet, funny enough, did have a password that I wasn't able to crack, but with physical access, I was able to get a root shell. Maybe we'll talk about that next time. There's also a bunch of other binaries that we can reverse engineer on this system. Funny enough, I talked about in one of the previous videos that there was this mini HTTPD binary that looked like it had some vulns. Turns out that's not even running on the device, and so that was a big dead end. So there is another binary that is hosting the RTSP server and the HTTPD, like the HTTP server that has all these vulns in it. So we will be able to reverse engineer that next time. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this content, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps me out, helps the channel out, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks.